Liz, you're always so willing to help us out in any way that we ask you to, and I really, really appreciate that.
Oh,
So
thank you.
we're doing this in honor of the National Disability Employment Awareness Month and your journey from going to from a shelter workshop to a competitive integrated employment position. And not a lot of people have done that. So you're a great example that can hopefully be used to help others. But let's go ahead and start at the beginning.
Okay.
When you came out of high school, what was the start of your employment journey at that point?
Okay. I graduated from a boarding school for people with intellectual disability. It was actually the best school of my life, and you might be saying why, because it was not an inclusive environment, um, the kind of environment that I fight for every day.
Right.
But it was a school that I felt like it wasn't bullied, and I could have friends, and I could have my friends gave me the respect that I deserve. Um, so after I graduated, the school, the headmaster talked to parents about what the next steps, and they recommended to my parents that I should go into a private institution.
Was that a surprise to you, given that you had a positive experience at the school and had really enjoyed that? Were you expecting the next step to be potentially a private institution?
No, and I was very upset because I was, and I have thought more about this since I graduated. Um, when I graduated, I probably didn't think anything of it. I was just told to go there, and I went there. But since I became an advocate, I have thought a lot about it. Um, I I was very upset. I because um my friends from that school who I went to school some of my friends were in my classes, some of them were I lived with. Um they all went to college. They went to a like a college program for people with disability. But
Right.
I went to this private institution, and my parents didn't think anything about it till I got there. And it was actually kind of interesting because I stayed after the second day. I called home. I remember calling home and saying to my and crying and saying to my parents, I don't like this. And they said, well, we're working on something. And speed up, after about a year, maybe 2 years, um, my parents begged me to go home and actually live where I'm living now, and what I'm um, getting the support that I need from the agency that I'm getting right now. Um,
Fantastic. So you pretty much spent about 2 years, it sounds like, in the institution, and
no, 9 years.
9 years. Oh, 9 years. Okay, 9 years in the institution.
And if you wait a minute, I'll tell you why.
Okay, sure.
Um, I stayed there because even though my parents told begged me to come home, I really believe that um if I listened to my parents, I would never be who I am today. I would never have been able to speak up for myself. I would never have been able to make my own decisions because I would just do whatever mom and dad wanted me to do. They told me to go to the institution, I went. If they told me to go home, I if I if I listened to them, I would never have learned how to stand up for myself.
That's a great lesson for all of us to hear. So you basically, it sounds like, came to the decision on your own outside of what your parents were suggesting that you needed to get in a different situation. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So when did I believe you spent some time in a sheltered workshop. Was that while you were in the institution, or did that happen after you came
No,
out?
when I was living in the institution, I worked in two places. I worked in a place where I did kind of workshops. I mean, work sheets, like math sheets that you would get when you were a kid. Um, and I would do office type of work, and it just was a horrible experience. And then
Was that in like a warehouse situation, or were you in an office? Do you remember anything about the environment that you were in when you were doing that?
office.
Okay, it was in an office. Okay.
And then I worked. Then I quote graduated from that program,
Mm-hmm.
and I but I was still in the same institution, and I worked in like a shopper's guide where you had um papers that you stuff for supermarkets that you get at the supermarket.
Right, like the coupons or the flyers, that type of thing.
Yes, and there was a table, probably more of a typical workshop that we know of, where there was probably 7 or 8 people from the institution and two staff people. It was just an awful experience because it was in a warehouse, like like Costco or those kind of stores that the Sam's warehouse uh, for buying things.
And it was not a job that you particularly enjoyed doing, it sounds like.
No, no.
So tell me what happened next after that
Um,
in terms of your employment journey.
well, I got out of the um institution. The way I got out of in the workshop and got into a real job because I worked um in a library for the rest of the time that I was in the institution. I had a library job outside the institution that I just adored. I just, it was probably one of the best jobs beside my job today that I had.
And did the people that were working with you at the institution, did they help you get that library job?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
great.
And but the way I got out of the institution was I faked seizures.
Wow.
I faked seizures, and I would rock and rock and rock and rock and rock, and and I and I would run away when I got upset. I studied people when they had seizures, and I could notice how they were treating. They had seizures, and I don't mean to make fun of people because I know seizures are really serious things, Um, but um, but that's the only way I knew that I could have people stop and listen to me.
Yeah. Wow. Did that then lead to a change where you were able to be in a different circumstance?
Yeah, I still was living in the institution because my parents didn't think anything of that I should move. And so I went to a conference one day and um, a national conference, and um, two of my best friends so happened they were talking to some people from Massachusetts because Massachusetts was at that time just starting um, to work on self advocacy, and they wanted to hire someone to help them with self advocacy. Two of my friends, so they two people from Massachusetts saw me at this conference and offered me a job. My main job was to work on quality assurance. They
Fantastic.
had they had a um a survey that they give to people that live um um to providers to interview people. And then I did some training. Um, and one of the other interesting part of that story is, and I learned this a very important lesson is, I kept on saying to people in my interview before I got the job, I want to be treated just like everyone else. The only issue in the training department was at the institution. I said to my friend, I said, why am I in the institution? Why am I in the institution? I don't want to be in the institution. I was in the institution. I got out of the institution. And she said, you want to be treated just like everyone else, so you're going to be treated like everyone else, and that's where the training department was. I wanted to do more traveling and more seeing the world. So I also wanted to live closer to mom and dad. I left that job. I went back to the conference where I found my job in Massachusetts,
Right.
and somebody recommended a job called the Council on Quality and Leadership. And I stayed there for 16 years where I did survey work and I also did some training work, and it was just a great job.
Great. And so that sounds like that built directly on what you had already been doing with the survey work and the quality assurance. Where was this job located that you got, that you stayed at for 16 years?
The headquarters was in Baltimore, but
Okay.
people were all over the country. They wanted me to move from Massachusetts to Baltimore, and as I said, um, I wanted to live closer to mom and dad, but but once I met my at that time my boyfriend, now my husband, and living he was living um in the Rockville area where we live today, and
Right.
I so I begged and begged and begged my supervisor if I could work from home, just like everyone else. And I would travel when I needed to. And they agreed to it. And then I got bored about doing that. So that's
Well,
where,
well, 16 years is a long time.
yeah,
so, so you didn't get bored too quickly, but then you just got to a point where you were ready to move on to the next
yeah.
step.
And then I found my job at AUCD.
That is great. So tell us a little bit about how you found your job at AUCD.
AUCD was doing a project, um, the South Advocacy Summit, and AUCD knew that they could not. Um, it was actually a project that ACL was doing, um, one of the grants, and AUCD knew that they could not do that work without a South Advocate, so they hired me.
That is fantastic. And so, what were your job responsibilities when they hired you? What did you have to do each day?
I was doing part-time work, so I was working for CQO and AUCD. But what I was doing was I helped them set up webinars. I went to all the summits. After all the summits were over, I um, I wrote the reports. I helped them write a plain language report. After that was all done, I had a vision of doing a video show.
Well, and let's talk a little bit about Tuesdays with Liz.
Tuesdays with Liz has been around for 4 years. It's a YouTube show where I make policy in accessible and fun ways for people to understand. And my idea has always been, and it began with my idea. Maybe it was a selfish idea, but I think everything begins with you in some ways. When I was little, I sat at the table and I never the dining room table with all my family, and I never understood what a policy was. I never understood what um home community based services was. I never understood what this was. I never understood what that was. So I wanted to make sure, and when I had the opportunity right after the summit to develop a YouTube show that people could go could understand what a policy was, so
Right.
they could go up to the hill, whether it was here in Annapolis, Maryland, or in DC, um, to talk about. Okay, I know what the ABLE Act is. I know what Transformative Competitive Employment Act is. And I know,
Fantastic.
yeah,
So it sounds like your goal, and it sounds like your goal is still today, that you want to make policy accessible and understandable to everybody so that it's clear what policies exist today and what type of advocacy needs to be done. Is that what your goal is?
yes. And
Fantastic.
and we have even done that with our newsletter called the Disability Policy News. There's a piece of it that I edit every week for plain language. And some of the words can't be changed because it's part of the law and
Right.
part of words are the way it is. But some that's why we have a plain language that we can talk about it.
And can you kind of say why plain language is so important for people who may not know about plain language, or why we strive to make things in plain language? Why is that important to you and to others?
I Great question. Thank you. I think plain language is important because it helps people belong to the conversation. It's help people to understand that they can contribute, and if there's no plain language, and there's so many times that I've gone to a meeting and people talk in big words. I don't mean 17 letters. I mean big words that I don't understand. And
Right.
sometimes they're 17 letters, but sometimes they're just big words. And if I can't understand it, I feel I feel like I want to cry because I'm not part of the conversation. And I can't be part of the conversation. And I want to be part of the conversation.
That's a very important point. And if people want to find Tuesdays with Liz, can they search on YouTube, or how would they find your show?
You can go to aucd.org, or you
Okay,
can Google on Tuesdays with Liz.
fantastic. And do you actually have input into the people that you're going to interview? Do you have to come up with the questions?
Yes, yes. How we do it is that there's a team of us. Um, the director of public policy, our the producer, and myself. Um, and that's why we need to wait for the producer. But as I said, we're still um doing past episodes. Um, Mostly on voting because voting is important these days. Um,
Absolutely.
we come up with who we think would be good people to interview, whether it's a topic that is in the news, whether it's a topic that AUCD is working on, or whether it's just a topic that I think that people might be interested in.
That sounds fantastic. And is that sort of the main part of your job now at AUCD, as well as helping to make sure the documents are in plain language, like we talked about? Is that and the podcast your two main responsibilities at this point?
Yes. And I should say the questions are all probably 90% my ideas,
Right.
um, because it's what I'm interested in. And sometimes my supervisor, the the director of public policy, Rylan Rogers, will will suggest things.
Great, great. Do you have any particular accommodations for your disability when you're working at AUCD? Do they set things up in a different way, or is there anything that makes it easier for you to be able to do your job well that you can share?
Um, well, I think the we have tried like a voice recognition for me to learn how to type faster.
Uh-huh.
Because I type I know that my mother would be rolling in her grave, but I still type like a handpack type is. Um,
Right,
it's just hard for me to use two hands.
right.
Um, it's really important that I feel very supported in my job. And I'll give you an example.
Sure.
And this is so wonderful. Um, AUCD has changed emails, servers, and I don't understand what it's called, but anyway, um, and I got frustrated. I didn't know how to work things. I
Right.
didn't know um what it looked like, and I got scared. And the web person at work um walked me through it, and it was just wonderful. And now I'm happy and I can do things myself. And yes, it's nice to know that I have a backup with Phil, my husband.
And the other thing that seems to run through your story as you have recounted it to us today is that you've had good communication with your supervisors.
Even people above your supervisor, if there's a problem with your supervisor, and this has never happened to me, um, but if I ever had a problem with my supervisor, people have often people have said to all of us, you know, you can talk to the ED of AUCD, because I could have a problem with my supervisor. I think it's also important that I don't that people with disability need to be accountable for their job and what they say and they do. And if we mess up, okay, we mess up, but we can't say, oh yeah, you're a person with a disability, we'll overlook that.
That is a
No,
very important point.
no.
Very important.
Treat me just like everyone else. Like me going into the institution. Did I like going into the institution? No, but that's where the training department was. And that's how being treated just like everyone else. And then the other thing I'll say is about giving me real work to do, and not busy work I'm doing at AUCD. I'm doing real work. I'm contributing. I think I basically said it, but I'll say it 2 words. Nothing about us without us, and that means if there's something involving me or my friends, I should be at that table. Not me personally. Well, maybe me
That'd
personally,
be fine
but
too.
yeah, but other people, and then all means all, we all need to be included.
That is perfect way to end this conversation. I really enjoyed spending the time with you today, Liz, and I'm so glad that we're able to share your story as widely as possible.
Okay, thank you. Be safe and happy Employment Month. Goodbye.
Thank you for celebrating National Disability Employment Awareness Month with us. We hope you continue tuning in all month as we talk more about the importance of employment and the dignity of work.